Today is Friday, October 17th. We're at the Alumni Center on the OSU campus. This is Jennifer Paustenbaugh, and I am here interviewing Kurt Carter, who is a former Pistol Pete, and we are going to talk about his experiences as a Pete, as one of many Petes at OSU. And I guess that's all I need to say to introduce the interview. Can you remember the first time that you saw the Pistol Pete mascot and what your impression of it was?
Gee, probably only once I came to Oklahoma State. I can't remember seeing it in high school. I grew up in Oklahoma City, but I can't really remember. Pete wasn't that visible at that point. And so as I come up here and went to school the first 2 or 3 years, I became really intrigued with the mascot and how visible it was, and that was based on a real person, those kind of things. So I'd say probably once I got to Oklahoma State.
Okay. And so your impression of Pete was, I mean, you said that it was cool because he was based on a real person, but anything other than that stands out?
You know, it's an interesting deal. I don't really think that all the parts of being Pistol Pete hit you until you do it, and probably even until after you do it. I think as a student, you see it a particular way. It's fun. You're at the athletic events. You get to go to all those things, and it's kind of based on athletics and that presence there. But in reality, there's a lot to it. You know, you're doing parades, you're doing alumni events, you're a spokesperson really for the university. And I don't think until you become Pete are you really aware of really what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. So what did you do growing up to prepare yourself for the role of being Pistol Pete? I mean, you've already said pretty much that if you hadn't seen Pete until you came here, it wasn't a role that you aspired to.
I'd say very little, actually. I was always active, though, as a student speaker and a student leader in high school, and doing plays and being in the public eye where I was not nervous about doing that. All that being said, I think the first time that you walk out in front of 50, 60, 70,000 people, even though you have that head on, you're very nervous. Mm-hmm. But I think as you interview all the Petes as you're doing, there's certainly a bunch of extroverts. And so we have that in common. And so I don't know that I did anything specifically to prepare, but I think we're just a lot of extroverts that like to get out and have fun, ham it up a little bit.
So what made you decide to come to OSU in the first place?
My best friend from high school was here. I had started my career as a student trainer. My education, rather, as a student trainer at Central State, because they gave me a full scholarship. And I went there, and all my friends were having so much fun up here at Oklahoma State that they talked me into transferring. So I actually came up here as a sophomore, and then extended to the 5-year plan. In the 5th year, I was Pistol Pete.
Okay. So what were some of the other activities you were involved in outside of being Pete? I mean, you said you were Pete as a 5th year. Mm-hmm. So what did you do prior to that?
Well, when I came up here, and this is one thing that I always talk to young people who are trying to make a decision about going to university. I transferred here, and so I did not end up in a fraternity. I was an independent. Yet I was able to do everything on campus that I wanted to, and that's something I think is unique about Oklahoma State. We have a very strong Greek system. We have very strong residence halls, independence. You can do anything here you want to do. In my particular case, I started off, I got involved in the Student Union Activities Board and moved up to Vice President of Student Activities, and then I emceed Varsity Review twice. My junior year, and the year I was Pete, I was MC. Actually, my senior was very busy. I was executive chairman of Homecoming and Pistol Pete and MC Varsity Review that year. So it was one of the favorite years of my life. It really was. It was a lot of fun.
I'm sure it was. Mm-hmm. So you must be really good at balancing lots of activities.
I think that most of us are at our best when we're busiest. You have to allocate time and do those kind of things. And I do think that's one thing I have carried into my adult life, my professional life, that really did help me was that frantic year of having to get everything done. So it really helped me.
So are you aware of any other Petes that served as both Pete and executive chair of Homecoming in
No,
the same year?
no, I don't think anyone has done that or
crazy.
MC First Review. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun though, and it was really fulfilling. The relationships that you forged during that time. You know, those are the ones you carry the rest of your life with you.
So when did you first decide that you wanted to be Pistol Pete?
You know, it was on a lark. It was not something planned. I saw the interviews advertised in the OOHRP, and I only decided about a week before to go try out. Keep in mind, you know, in 1981, things were not as organized and structured here on campus in regard to Pistol Pete as they are now. It was run by student activities, and so I went up and interviewed, and I thought I had a good interview, and they called me that night and said I was the guy, and I was astonished and very pleased, but I didn't really know what I'd gotten myself into in terms of the time commitment and those things, but it turned out to be one of the greatest parts of my life.
So what was the interview process like?
At that time they asked us, it was pretty similar to now. The only difference was that at that time the advisors, the staff advisors from the student affairs area, the student activities area would do the interviewing. Where now, and maybe probably for the last 20 or 25 years, the former Pistol Petes do the interviewing, and we pick the Petes each year. The interview, I think, is similar. You want to see how a person looks with the head on. Can you do a rope trick? Can you do some physical things? I think you're also looking, and certainly what we look for now is, do you understand the level of commitment that it takes to be Pete from a time perspective? And everyone thinks, well, that'd be so much fun to do the football games and this, but each Pete, of course, we have 2 a year now, and each of those young men will make almost 300 appearances each. So they're somewhere every day, and sometimes you want to be there, and sometimes you'd rather not be there. And but you have to get in costume, and you have to get your mind right, if you will, and go to work and represent the university. So the interview is pretty much structured the same, but just different people do it now with the Petes.
So when did they switch to the 2-Pete model, I guess?
I guess that was about, I'm going to say that was maybe 15 years ago, because before that we would have a Pistol Pete and an alternate. And in my year, Don Giles, a great young guy from here in Stillwater, was my alternate, and he became Pete the next year. And in my deal, I think I did 268 appearances in 365 days, and Don did probably 75 or 80. And now it just got so many appearances that we went with 2 Pistol Petes, and like I say, they do a lot of appearances now.
So the former Petes now are the ones that choose the current Pete. So when does that interview process occur, and what would be a typical year in terms of the number of people that try out?
The Pistol Pete tryouts occur generally in April each year, and the athletic department, the spirit coordinators, right now it's Tracy Whitwer, who's the spirit team coach. She coordinates everything, calls the Pistol Petes, figures out who's going to come, and there will be anywhere from 5 to 8 ex-Pistol Petes. We kind of take turns being here. Depending on the year, we may have anywhere from 20 to 35 young men try out. We've had some young women try out. A lot of our selection is based on physical look, of course, because you have to have some height to you. That's a very large head on that costume, and if you're not careful, if the individual's too short, you kind of look like a head with feet. You know, you look kind of like a Smurf, and so you have to be careful about that. So you almost have to be around. You have to almost be around 6 feet tall to get the proportion. But then mostly we're looking for commitment. If someone has an outgoing personality, they can go to camp and learn how to be a mascot, how to do the things people think Pete does. But we're looking for commitment of, do you know the year you're in for? Do you have any idea of the unbelievable time commitment? Not until after you are Pete, I think, do you slide into this alumni mix of cherishing it like we all do.
So going back to something you just said about you can go to camp and learn how to do the things that Pete does, is there like some sort of training program for the Petes?
Well, they actually go to cheerleader camp with the OSU cheerleaders each year.
Okay.
And typically, I think it's maybe down at SMU, But there's a mascot part to that where they learn how to be demonstrative and make their actions big and all the different things. And several of our Petes at the cheerleading camps have been named what's called All-American Mascot, chosen as the best mascot in the country. And I can't recall them all by name, but over the years we've had a number of those as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that was something that in 1981 would have never been considered.
Okay, I was
the
gonna
cheerleaders
say-
didn't even go to camp, I don't think.
Yeah.
But as it has evolved and matured, it's just gets better and better.
So did you receive any kind of compensation for being Pete, other
No.
than the great memories?
No, though we didn't have any kind of stipend. Actually, it was sometimes tough to get our mileage covered even, and so we incurred quite a bit of expense on our own.
So what was the Pistol Pete, costume like when you were Pistol Pete?
It was very similar to now. One of the heads that we use now, I think was the same one I used, is one that was produced by a gentleman who worked for Disney. The chaps were a little different because they're kind of tan, and they were made at Okmulgee, at OSU Okmulgee in the leather shop. Since then, again, everything's been cleaned up a little. They're orange chaps now. Everything's a little crisper and cleaner and a uniform look. But basically it was the same, boots and jeans, a white shirt, a black leather vest, your chaps, and the head. And that was still pretty much the outfit. It's just been refined a little bit over there too. Yeah.
Were there any do's and don'ts about being Pistol Pete?
Quite frankly, I had very little guidance. I think that they turned you loose and said, have some common sense about this, and make sure that you're doing the right thing.
You know what? This isn't recording at all.
Well, that would be good.
Well, it's recording on the video, which is why we have redundancy.
We can do it again.
No, we're not going to do it again. But hold on and let me figure out why it's not recording. Okay.
Now, do you work for the alumni, or do you work for a library? Or what?
I work for the library. I'm an associate dean, and I was the one that started our oral history program, and so...
This is very, very important.
Oh, and actually, this particular project, we were so lucky to get Jerry on board, because before, this was a project that we worked in with all of our other projects, but this is Jerry's sole focus.
He's an ace.
Yeah, he is. We were just really thrilled to get him. Okay, I think now we're recording on this, so that's okay. As I said, this has good audio on it, and that's why we record twice.
That's fine.
Okay. So for the audio portion of this, we are now partway through this interview with Kurt Carter. But we were talking before I realized that the CD audio wasn't working about the behavior expectations and the do's and don'ts. So you said really at the time that you did it that there weren't a whole lot of, expectations that were communicated.
Right. Now,
Other than just behaving yourself.
Right.
In general.
Behave yourself and conduct yourself like your mom and dad raised you.
Right.
Was about the extent of it. Had very little guidance, very little contact. They just kind of turned us loose and said, go behave yourself and represent the university well. And so I kind of adopted the attitude of, hey, until somebody tells me to do something different, I'm going to try to do the best I can and be aggressive really with the program and be all the places I can be. But it was a lot easier on us in some regards. It's a lot easier on the Petes now because it's so organized and they don't have to worry about different things. But it was easier on us because we didn't have so much direction either.
Mm-hmm.
And really the time commitment was not near what they have now. Even though I did 268 appearances in a year,
it was still significant.
It's still tough. Now these guys really work hard.
Right.
Yeah.
I know there was one thing I wanted to ask you about the Pistol Pete costume. some of the older Pete's used pistols all the time, and then now, you know, we see the shotgun a lot. Were you purely a pistol guy, or did you have
81 was a pistol guy.
Okay.
Yeah, we just had the one pistol, and we had that gun in service for a long time. It was a 357 Black Hawk Ruger, and one thing a lot of people don't understand is we go to great lengths to ensure safety with those firearms, because those are not pop guns. Those are real firearms,
Right.
and they can hurt people. And so we are very cautious, and we always instruct the Pete. They go through gun safety courses with OSU Police, and we have safeguards in place because that we just have to be very careful with those and very respectful of the fact that we still get to enjoy having those firearms as part of our mascot image.
Right. Because I'm not aware of any other mascot that has a firearm as part of their.
I can't think of another mascot. I know that some spirit groups use those with shotguns and things, I think at Texas Tech and perhaps at OU in different places, but not the mascot itself, probably.
Okay. Was your experience as Pistol Pete what you thought it was going to be? And if it wasn't, how was it different?
Well, again, I kind of took it on a lark, and so I don't know if I had a lot of expectations. Well, let me answer that two ways. I had so little expectations, and it was beyond my wildest dreams. Not only what it was like doing it, it was a lot of fun doing it, but what happened to me was I forged relationships, both on campus and off, that I still have hundreds, if not thousands of relationships intact that have helped guide my professional career. I started off, as a matter of fact, right out of school. I told you I'd been homecoming executive chairman, and so my first job out of college was working for the Alumni Association as the advisor for homecoming.
Oh,
It's called
perfect.
it's called the field director. And then I worked for the OSU Foundation for 2 years.
Okay.
And
What
then
did you do at the foundation?
Raised money from the General University Fund.
Okay, great.
And then I became assistant athletic director for 8 years,
Okay.
and head up the OSU posse and the fundraising and those kind of things. And so there was a natural trilogy for me that started with Pistol Pete, and then my first 10 years in my work life I spent here at Oklahoma State. And it was a great blessing to me.
Okay. So what do you do now?
I had the investment program for Stillwater National Bank.
Okay.
I live in Edmond, but of course we're
Okay,
still headquartered here.
Right. Okay.
Office in Oklahoma City, but yeah, and again, I think my path to the bank actually started way back at being Pistol Pete, probably.
Yeah, who would have thought, right?
Who knew? Who knew?
So what was a typical week like for you as Pete?
Well, once school started, of course, everything really picks up through the fall. Around a typical week was pretty easy through football season until you got into Friday night pep rallies, and all day Saturday you might go to a reception for the College of Engineering, and then you go somewhere else and do something else, do a parade, go to the game. Where it really picks up is when the sports started overlapping, and you're at the end of football season, and basketball and wrestling has started. So you're doing women's basketball, you're doing wrestling matches, and you're doing lots of doubleheaders. And that was the really busy time. Was that overlap season?
So do you know what year Pete started going to women's athletic events?
Oh, I would say, no, I don't. I'd say probably really actively in about the last 10 years, because I probably only did 2 or 3
Okay.
when I was Pete.
All right. I wasn't sure if that was something
That-
that you
and-
might have started, or was something that was already in place but just not.
No, Jeff, keep in mind that 1981, that's about the time that Title IX came to fruition.
Right.
And I think, best of my recollection, I think that our women's programs were not even in the NCAA at the time. I think they were the AIAW or something. And so that was when it all started.
Was it right
And then-
about the crossover?
Yeah, it's about the
year
crossover
from
time.
No.
Mhm.
Okay, interesting. Did you have any, this question that Jerry Gill actually developed the questions for this interview, and the question is, did you have difficulty balancing your 2 lives? It sounds like you were living like 3 or 4 lives while you were here.
I was. probably if something suffered, it was my academics. Best I recall, I may have dropped under 12 hours finally by the spring, but
was that a requirement to keep
it wasn't at the
12
time.
hours? Okay.
It wasn't at
Is
the
it
time.
now?
Absolutely,
Oh, okay.
yeah. And again, that's why I say the Petes now enjoy so much more benefits and structure, but they have a lot more rules too, and they have to maintain certain GPAs. We just kind of had to stay out of trouble.
But sometimes that's a challenge in and of itself.
There were a couple of days probably, yeah.
So what was your favorite athletic event to portray Pete at?
Basketball.
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 And why was that?
Well, you're right. It's up close and personal. Of course, this is before the Gallagher-Iba Arena was enlarged and renovated, so it was a cracker box. It was 6,400 people or so, and
but loud.
it was extremely loud. And of course, also at that time, our basketball program was very good, and our football program was struggling. And so, it's just like everything else. When you're winning, it's more fun. But basketball was a lot of fun to do.
Right at the beginning of the interview, you said that one of the things that interested you about Pete was the fact that he was based on a real person. So how much of realizing that Frank Eaton had been dead for a number of years when you took on the role, was there anything that you learned about him that sort of informed the way that you portrayed Pete? Any characteristic that you were, or characteristics you were aware of him having?
Absolutely. I could closely identify with Frank Eaton. My family, my mom and dad are from southeastern Oklahoma, fondly referred to as this area as Little Dixie.
Right?
Yeah, and my dad grew up. They grew up very poor, agriculture. I think my dad actually dated my mom by horseback. In the 50s, and so. The background of Frank Eaton with the law enforcement and the guns and the legacy, if you will, I had heard those similar kind of stories from my family background and people down in southeastern Oklahoma where, that was really how everybody lived. You took care of your own problems and everybody kind of got all scores settled and those kind of things. And so I connected with it there. The other thing I connected with was he died the year I was born, 1958. Which of course was the first year that we had Pete. Now, as you know, our Pete in 1958, Alan Leach, just portrayed a cowboy, didn't have the paper mache head. And then after that, we developed paper mache, and then through the composite materials we use today for the Pistol Pete head. But I connected very well with Frank Eaton.
So were you ever involved in any type of mascot competition?
No, again, they wouldn't be today. Back then, we would not have had the budget to be in a mascot competition.
So at the time that you were Pete in the Big 8 conference, did all of the schools have mascots that appeared at the games?
Mm-hmm, they did. Some of them were kind of rinky-dink. Some of them were pretty good.
Some of them still are.
Yeah. You had one of everything. Of course, Colorado always had Ralphie, the buffalo, the real buffalo. I don't think they had Chip. The little squirrely looking guy, no offense, well, a little bit. But anyway, I don't think he was around. The guys down south, I still had the little dogs pulling the wagon. I guess they may be horses. I don't know. I think I don't know if they're dogs or horses.
Shetland
but they pulled whatever they pulled anyway. Yeah. But anyway, so there were some really good mascots, and there were some kind of rinky-dink deals around.
Okay. How do you feel that Pete better captures the spirit of his university for the public than other mascots do?
Again, I think you go back to how it started. First of all, that it was based on a real person who was chosen by the students, who really by acclamation, if you will, they saw this guy riding the parade and they said, "Wait a minute. That's who we want our university to be modeled after from a logo standpoint or a character standpoint." And so the students picked him, and I think that's very appropriate. Secondly, as it's evolved, Pistol Pete has evolved right along with Oklahoma State University. If you look at the sophistication and the position that OSU had when I graduated in '81 and look at it now, I think you can see that mirrored very well by our mascot. And so OSU keeps getting better, Pistol Pete keeps getting better.
So were you involved in any competitions like at New Mexico State or the University of Wyoming where they have a similar looking mascot, or you appeared, or they came here and their mascot appeared, or?
No, they used the same caricature as we did for a while, the window decal, if you will, of Pistol Pete. But their mascots never were up to par. I actually, when I was working here at Oklahoma State, went to New Mexico State to consult on their mascot issues. And really, they ended up going a completely different way, which I thought was smart. And I never really had any contact with Wyoming.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is interesting how similar they ended up being, although it seems like in sort of, this would sound like a biased statement, but it's sort of, I guess, looking at it as an outsider, it seems like ours is so much more well-developed and more pervasive.
Well, I think that's exactly what happened. No, I think you're exactly right. I think it's exactly what happened. I think it was kind of a three-way tie there for a while, but as OSU emerged and our Pistol Pete became so known with OSU, I think they kind of backed off for that reason.
Yeah.
And I think Wyoming's is Cowboy Joe.
Right.
And
I don't ever remember what New Mexico State was. Yeah. Well, I think it's helped us too that we've been on the national stage a lot more with our athletic program. So we've had a lot. Pistol Pete's had a wider exposure than those schools would. Are there any especially meaningful experiences that you had as Pete?
Oh, geez. So many. Really, so many. I remember maybe the opening football game, Sugar Ray Leonard, the famous boxer, was a guest of some people here, and he came down. I have a picture of us sparring on the sidelines. In basketball, Coach Denny Crum and the Louisville Cardinals had won the national championship the year before, and so they came in as a game here in Gallagher Hall at the time. And we were down about 8 or so at the half. And keep in mind, this is before the three-point line. And so we fought back. And at the end of the game, they had a 1-point lead. And we fouled them to go to the free throw line, hoping they would miss. And there was like 4 seconds left. And so they stepped to the line and sure enough, missed both free throws. Eddie, half-court Hannon, grabs the ball, launches it from just beyond half court, and hits the bucket, and we knocked Louisville off by a point. And of course, the place erupted, and I'm looking through the eyes of the head, right? And I thought, wow, that looked like it went in. Well, about that time, the crowd just literally picked me up and moved me at half court. I went, it did go in. So that was probably, of all the athletic events, that was probably my favorite because. Great upset, great day in Gallagher.
So what is that like watching a competition through that really sort of limited point of view?
It's a little tough. It's kind of like putting 2 holes in a fence and backing up about 12 inches and trying to watch the world through it. One thing that we did develop in the chin of the head was we've cut a screen now. There's a screen cut in the bottom of it, and then it's painted over. That way you can actually look straight down at your legs. And the reason we did that is because small children really don't have a sense of space.
Right.
You know, a 3-year-old will walk right up to your legs. And so lots of times there'll be children all around. Well, what would happen is you'd see them and you think you were clear and you take a step and you knock 3 3-years all to the ground. You know, they go tumbling, you know. So we cut the screen in, and that, I think, saved some bumps and bruises on our young children in Oklahoma. But that was one deal. I'm sorry, I don't remember the rest of the question.
Well, just, especially meaningful experiences that you had as Pete. What a great story, though.
Yeah, I always liked the work out from under the head, probably where I'm kind of a little bit of a ham. I like to speak, and so I got to see the pep rallies, and also that same senior year, I spoke at 20 honors banquets for the Alumni Association that same senior year. So it was a blast.
Is there anything that you're willing to share with us that was like your most embarrassing moment?
My most embarrassing moment? Probably the only one that springs to mind was we were playing at Nebraska in football, and I want to say this was like an October game. Well, it was 75 degrees here in Stillwater when we left, and the only thing I took was a down vest, okay, to wear because I thought it'd be nice. Well, we get to Lincoln, and it was just colder than you know what. And the night before, myself and a few of the other members of the Spirit Squad had gone out and sold the program locally pretty hard, and we weren't feeling at our best that next morning, and so it's about 20 degrees. I'm freezing. I'm not feeling so hot. And I'm just kind of hanging in. And there's 80,000 screaming red Nebraska fans that they're just getting ready to just beat our brains out. And so I kind of slide over to the fence and pop the deal up. And one of my buddies comes up. And I think it was Farmhouse Fraternity had taken their pledge sneak. And they were up at Lincoln. He said, "Hey, you want something to drink?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Is it a Coke?" He said, "Yes, Coke." Well, I take this big drink of Coke, and it was Coke with some additives. and I stood there for a minute, and I thought, I'm getting ready to throw up in front of 80,000 people. And finally, I steadied myself. It was probably not my most demonstrative game as Pistol Pete, but that would probably be it.
But you did save yourself that embarrassment.
I did save myself. I hung on, yes.
Oh, gosh. So you mentioned that Pete has a lot of interaction with children. What is that like? I mean, there are children that are real excited to see you, and there are children, like I remember Pistol Pete came to my house once as a promotion for, I think, softball. And my son was like so excited to see him, and my daughter was absolutely terrified. Mm-hmm. So how did you deal with situations like that?
Happens almost every day. Not just with children, but people react to you emotionally different, whether that's your own fans sometimes, certainly the opposing fans or children. You have to keep a really even keel, and you have to remember to make very slow motions, be very inviting. Unfortunately, Pete's face doesn't move, so he has that very grim, firm expression on his face all the time. And for young children, you're right, it can be very frightening. A lot of times, first thing you do is you kneel down, just like we would as an adult, to greet a child. Don't be as big to them. Get smaller if you can, and just don't press the issue. We have seen people that keep going, pushing their kids for us. They're screaming and crying, and at some point, I would actually stand up and turn and walk away in the crowd. And so. You have to have an even keel, and you have to always be really respectful to those youngsters, and like I say, make sure you don't run over them too.
So is that something that you look for in Pete's when you go through the interview process with Pete's, is people that you think can do a good job with that?
Well, you're certainly looking for that kind of thing, but quite honestly, we're very fortunate and have been very fortunate about the area of the country that we're located in. People who have great values, they do mostly have a lick of sense. You can tell pretty quickly in most interviews how a person was raised, what their values are, what they can do. The techniques can all be taught. Everybody does it differently. There's no right or wrong way, but it's kind of like the commitment. You can see. Also, you have to ask people how they take criticism, because sometimes you have to say, "Hey, look, that's tough on a kid that way," or whatever. But generally, mostly it's common sense.
When you were Pete, were you ever criticized? In a public kind of way? Not
in a public way. I think the only criticism a fan ever gave me was, this was back before people were real demonstrative at basketball games, okay? Mm-hmm. And so everybody wouldn't jump up behind the rail and say, well, I think we were playing Colorado or somebody, and I took the OSU flag behind the goal and was waving it, so the guy tried to miss the free throw. And I had some people come down and criticize me for that, for being a bad sport. Okay. And of course today that would be commonly accepted. That'd be right in the sweet spot. But times have changed, and I'm not sure whether I would agree or not. I think we could harken back to some of those times and probably be better off in some regards. But that was probably the only criticism I ever got.
Did you feel a special sense of responsibility representing OSU to the public?
Absolutely. I think it probably didn't change me in my behavior, but I was certainly always aware that, hey, I want to conduct myself in a way, which again, I'm not sure Pete did that. I think that was probably still, all the way back to not wanting to disappoint my mom and dad.
Sure.
I mean, really is where it comes from. But I think it certainly makes you aware.
Yeah.
As it does, I think, with student athletes or anyone else here that's representing the university as a student.
What did being Pistol Pete at the time mean to you?
Fun, really. I mean, you're in college. It meant fun and access.
Mm-hmm.
You had access to be able to pretty much do anything you wanted to do and have a lot of fun doing it. I think one of the funniest episodes, I had a Jeep, so I could just throw the back flap up and put the head in the back of the Jeep, and it was easy access. And so I drove a Jeep. We had a wonderful group of OSU police officers. These guys were just great guys. Several went on to be on the highway patrol, and I've lost track of some of them, but they were just great guys. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have a parking pass to be on campus, but they just let me kind of park wherever I wanted. They didn't. It was my Jeep, and so I just go because if I had to go to home ec or if I had to go to engineering, I need to get close to the building, not be walking all over the place. So they were really lenient. Well, one morning I had a early class at Ag Hall, and I got over there and there weren't any parking places, and there was like the parking places here, and then a little grass thing came out, and then parking places. So I just pulled my Jeep up on the grass on the median, and went into class. And I'll never forget the guy's name's Coy Jenkins, great guy. Come out, and his business card, OSU Police business card, is on my windshield, and he had written, "Kurt, I know we cut you a lot of slack, but give me a break." And I wish I'd kept the card, but again, they were just so good to us, and wouldn't let you get by with too much, but would certainly work with you to try to make everything easy.
Let you know you were pushing the limit.
Absolutely, absolutely, as I was.
So what does it mean to you now?
Oh man, wow! I think you got me. Very emotional. My wife is from the University of North Carolina. She's a Tar Heel, and she loves her Tar Heels. She's a very loyal alumni. Yeah. But she told me one time. She said, "Kurt," she said, "do you feel differently about your school than I did?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, it just means more to you." And excuse me, I'm sorry. I said, "Jenny," I said, "it changed my life." I grew up blue collar in the south side of Oklahoma City. Had a great childhood, great experience. Went to a great high school, Western Heights in Oklahoma City. But I came up here and I got to do everything. You and I have talked about it, and it reshaped me. Then I know you're talking today at our 50th reunion of Pistol Pete's. We have 53 of the former Pete's. I think there's 70 of us, and I think there's 53 back this weekend.
Wow, I didn't know so many. That's great.
And what is really meaningful is when I see these guys. Dave Treese from 1984. He was in our wedding in Carolina 12 years ago. He lives in Baltimore, Maryland with his wife, Marcy. His wife, Marcy, sang in our wedding. I've seen them one time since then. And so the relationships with the Petes, the relationships with the people here at Oklahoma State, it's everything. I mean, it's the best part of life. It is.
Well, sometimes I think it's good that when we have experiences at a young age that we don't realize at the time how important they're going to be to us later on.
And I hope as we have hopefully matured some, I hope that we have continued to be respectful of those things and to help grow the young people in those deals and to lead them and support them and give to them and those kind of things.
So you talked about the fact that Dave Treese from '84 was in your wedding. Do you keep in close contact with the Petes other than the ones that were sort of immediately around the time that you were here?
Oh, some, not a lot. You know, life goes on, and life comes at us everyone pretty quickly, and it's hard to keep up even with those guys sometimes. We email and we try to get together if they're going to come in to see their families for Thanksgiving or Christmas, or if we're traveling out in their areas. I have probably kept in touch with some more of them because I tried to get the reunion organized.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you kind of cluster, you know, around the 3 or 4 guys that were before and after you, you know, and so I think at the reunion this weekend we'll see that manifested too.
When you were Pete, did you ever get in touch with any of the former Petes to find out how they handled things, or?
No, I didn't get in touch with them, but they got in touch with me.
Oh,
You know, several guys would come up and say, hey, I was Pete in 73, or I was Pete in 66. And again, the alumni club was not as well structured, but yeah, I had great conversations with those guys. And they tell me funny stories. And of course, keep in mind, again, it was kind of loose as a goose, you know, I mean, kind of made it up as you went along at the time. And so they would always come talk to me. And so I began to get some friendship started with them. You're a little intimidated as a student though.
Sure.
You know, I mean, when somebody's 5 years older than you are and you're 21 years old, that seems like an eternity. Yeah, so.
That's right. So do you think that there's any kind of a collective legacy that the former Petes have left the university?
In what respect?
I don't know, beyond, I guess, anything beyond the having this really great tradition of having this mascot. Is there anything else that you think that they've brought to the university?
Hopefully that we have continued year after year, and I know it doesn't sound like a high bar without incident, but I hope that we brought integrity to the mascot and I guess a serviceability to the mascot that so it doesn't have to be on some administrator's radar screen all the time. There's no concern and worry about it. Part of that goes to Dave Martin and his wife Tony, who have kind of been the sponsors, to Tracy Whitwer and her husband Dan. Very value-based couples, and we couldn't ask any better leadership, adult supervision leadership over a bunch of college students year after year after year. And I think that if you're really looking for the answer to that question, I'd probably slide that over to those sponsors who have really led the way and continue to guide with not just their words, but their actions and how they live their lives and those kind of things. I think that has really served our spirit groups and especially Pistol Pete very well.
So how had, I asked you a few minutes ago about what does having been Pistol Pete mean to you now, but has it influenced your life in any particular way?
In every way.
In every way?
In every way. It is part and parcel of who I am now. It is my primary connection back to Oklahoma State, even though I was a professional here as well. It really let me kickstart my career, and a trilogy of things have happened. Every place that I've ever worked, from the university, I left there and went to Phillips Petroleum, left there and came to Stillwater National Bank, and have been there ever since. All of those were connections I made back starting when I was Pistol Pete and then continuing on at Oklahoma State. So I can't separate it anymore, quite honestly. I think it's a theme of my life a little bit.
So what is, for people that just meeting you, what is their reaction when they find out that you were a former Pete?
It depends. Oklahoma State people are prone to hug me. Others think, well, that's neat. They don't understand the uniqueness of our mascot here. Again, I'll harken back to my wife. She was working in a dental office in Oklahoma, in Edmond. Chuck Hetrick, who was a wrestler here, a wrestling family from Oklahoma State. He's a dentist in Edmond. And when we first came back to Edmond, she would come home and say, what is the deal with you being Pistol Pete? And this is, 20 years later. Mm-hmm. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, everybody comes in as soon as Beverly or Chuck say, "Oh," and her husband was a Pistol Pete, and they hug me, and she said, you know, at Carolina nobody cares who the Ram is, or at ECU nobody cares who Petey Pirate. She said, nobody cares. It's no big deal. I said, well, you know, I said it really is kind of a peculiar here that it's always been a big deal to be our mascot. I said, I don't really know of any other school that anybody cares who portrayed those mascots. But for some reason, it's always been a big deal here. And I don't know how that got started, quite honestly. But everybody's always thinks that's a really neat deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is interesting. What would you tell somebody that was thinking about trying out for Pete?
I would first say, make sure that your grades are in order. Make sure that you have really good time management habits. Number two, get ready for a ride of your lifetime for a year in terms of activity and events, those kind of things. But the thing I would tell them is that you won't understand how important this will be to you maybe till you're out of school for 5 or 6 years. And then it will be even more important to you perhaps than when you did the work and portrayed it as a student. It's just a long legacy now. I mean, we're 50 years into it, and I hope that we're playing, that someone is watching you and I at the 100-year reunion and going, wow, look how weird they look, you know? So.
Yeah. I know, you know, the next question, I think that the answer from everything you've told me is so obvious, but reflecting back, would you do it again?
I would. I think the question for me would be perhaps, would I do it more than 1 year? And I don't think I would. At the time when I did it and it was over, I wish I had another year. I wish I'd done this as a junior and then got it again as a senior. We've had several guys do it 2 years. I think we maybe even had some guys do it 3 years. But a lot of guys have done it 2 years. That was a special, magical, great year for me. And I'm glad it was 1 year. And so I would absolutely do it again, but I probably wouldn't do it 2 years.
Okay. Is there anything that you wish that I had asked you about your experience as Pistol Pete or in this interview that I haven't?
Oh, I probably just, you were Pistol Pete in 1981. God, you don't look that old.
Gosh, and you don't.
You know what? You can be taught. I can't think of anything.
Okay.
But I appreciate your time.
Well, and I appreciate your willingness to sit down and talk today. I know you have a really busy schedule this homecoming, so this has been great.
It's going to be a fun weekend.
It is. It always is.